Let me tell you how great white privilege is, okay? I'm highly educated, highly experienced in mediation, law, and I applied to the federal government 160 times with one interview that I was interviewed by a African American woman and a Hispanic male in South Carolina at the EEOC.
What does EEOC stand for? Equal Employment Opportunity Center? Is that what it means? Equal Opportunity Center, Equal Employment Opportunity Center. So basically, nobody should be discriminated against based off of race or gender or sexuality, I'm assuming, right? Makes sense.
Get that. I flew from Panama, the country, to Houston, to Kansas City, to Atlanta, Georgia, to South Carolina to be interviewed. And when I walked in for the interview, this is what happened. I walked in, sat down, an African woman came out, looked at me, didn't say a word to me, walked back into the office. Then when I went in for the interview, I sat down and the African American woman and Hispanic male said, "We want to thank you for coming in for the interview." And I said, "Well, I appreciate the opportunity." She goes, "We're done." I said, "What do you mean we're done? Don't you want to ask me any questions about my experience, my skills?" "Nope, we're done." That was it. That was my interview, of which I didn't get hired. They hired an African American woman with no experience who was a former flight attendant to take a job as a mediator.
I've been saying this and people been acting like I'm crazy, but I'm not, and I'm right, and I know that I'm right. And what I've been saying is that the white heterosexual male has now become the poster child for not only white privilege, but also the face of what people feel as though they need to eliminate and discriminate against. White heterosexual representing man, right? Because you can't tell what his sexuality is, but he's clearly not projecting himself to be sassy, have become the poster children for the United States of America for discrimination, white privilege, and there is an inherent like visibility that comes along with it, because it used to be to where if you were discriminated against, or people that were discriminated against, right, it wasn't so open. They will still put you through the interview process. You still got an opportunity to prove yourself. But them basically saying, "Hey, listen, thank you for coming in. Have a nice day," simply because you white, and then they hire a black woman that used to be an airline pilot, is crazy. That means that now people have become so comfortable in their overcorrection that they now don't even take into consideration. They are willing to blatantly disrespect you, discriminate against you, and eliminate you. They don't care about your circumstance. They don't care whether or not your experience is right. None of that stuff. Now, we're fortunate, right? We're fortunate nowadays because whether you want to talk about it on the internet or whether you want to talk about it in real life or you have your real life experiences, black people, essentially, we can do and say and pretty much get away with anything that we want to get away with at this point. And nobody is going to say or do anything to us because society and culture and American culture has overcorrected so much to where we can basically claim ourselves to be a victim, even if it's not warranted. So if I go into a job interview and I say, "Hey, listen, I was discriminated against and I didn't get the opportunity because they hired this white woman instead," and so on and so forth, well, that's now going to have merit. Why? Simply because I'm a black man and I can claim racism and it's been popular to do so, and somebody is going to take me serious, and now they got to start paying attention to what goes on inside of whatever it is that I'm experiencing, right? To hear a white person say this, even if it is valid, is dismissive for most people because they're going to look at you and say, "Oh, no, what, you running in the victim Olympics now? What, you claiming to be this, you claiming to be that?" But the fact of the matter is if he said that they didn't even ask him no questions, they looked at him, walked out, and said, "Have a nice day," where is the privilege in that? That's not only not only a lack of privilege, but that's an overcorrection and dismissing of whether or not he actually qualified for the job, especially if his credentials, his resume, what it is that he stands for, if he was better suited for the job. Now, I have heard of age discrimination. People look at you and say, oh, no, I don't think you're going to be able to do the job, or you're not going to be a good cultural fit, or you're too old, or whatever. So on and so. I've heard of that. Doesn't make it right either, but I've heard of that. But to blatantly dismiss somebody and then hire the opposite of them, even if he has more experience, and to never even ask him an interview question, that is clearly a form of discrimination. And that ain't even, I don't even see no white privilege anywhere in it. I haven't seen personally, and I'm trying to get y'all to understand and see something. I haven't seen white privilege. I've never witnessed it in real life.
Unbelievable. Now, you want to talk about another? This is happening right now. I'm suing Lake County, Florida, for a
White people don't mind oh, snaps.
DEI hire, which they made recently, for the courthouse as a mediator. Now, get this. I have 40 years experience. I'm a white male. And I have degrees from Purdue in law and studied at Harvard and Pepperdine and Duke University, University of Missouri, University of Houston, so many universities. I have a lot of experience. Worked with the U.S. Department of Justice and Homeland Security.
Sheesh.
Now get this. Instead of hiring me with all my experience, they hire an Asian woman, 30 years old.
Why he keep patting his hair?
Demanding twice the salary that they wanted, and has no experience in law, no education in law, no experience as a mediator, there's a volunteer, and that's what they hired instead. DEI hired blatantly. And it was hired by a woman who is Indian and has a law degree from a California law school, which means it's not valid in Florida. So this is the type of people that are going on and trying to say white privilege, oh, we get all these benefits. That is crazy. It is not true. And so get off this high horse about white privilege. It doesn't exist. We're more discriminated against than it used to be with African American people 50 years ago. So get off your high horse.
He said it. He said it. You know, I'm going to probably include this in a conversation on Monday night. You know, Monday night it's going to get popping, and we're going to have some uncomfortable conversations when it comes to discrimination because, again, I've said it. I've stood on it. I see people talking about it all the time. They say that they only want to hire their own. They say that they only want representation from people that look like them, even if it comes from a person that's destroying their communities. We see it in people's voting patterns. Very rarely will you be able to see a white person get voted in a majority black community, even if the demographic and the voting poll says that it's under 20%, under 15%, under 10%. And he's basically telling you, listen, I had the experience. I was the better candidate. And I don't know if he said something that was wild in the interview, and then they went and basically gave double the salary over to somebody else that was younger and less experienced because they felt like they would be a better cultural fit. I don't know, right? You only hearing it from one side, but it doesn't mean that it can't be valid. It doesn't mean that it can't be true, that white people are not discriminated upon based off of what they look like, even if they don't necessarily have anything, or they don't have any privilege, or they're not doing better in life than you, or they didn't get a leg up. Diversity, equity, and inclusion hires still exists. I know that it still exists because I've heard stories from people in real life that basically said that they have a preference for a certain demographic of person, and it had nothing to do with their experience. And so I want to know what y'all think. Always going to give credit to the content creator. Make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Teach Henley, 40% off your first order, 20% off for life. And then make sure you tap into the Patreon. We got a live stream coming up. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.